Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the CEC 15 business meeting. It is May 9th, 2023. This is Camille Casaretti, the president for CEC 15, and I'm going to call this meeting to order at 6:33 p.m. I would like to have the interpreters introduce themselves. Could we start with the Bangla interpreter, please?
Sure. Bengali interpretation. শুভ সন্ধ্যা সকলকে। আজকে আমি আছি বাংলা ভাষী হিসেবে নুশান এবং আমার সাথে আছে মিস্টার অতীন দেয়ান। আপনাদের যদি কোনো প্রশ্ন থেকে থাকে তাহলে আপনারা আমাদেরকে প্রশ্ন করতে পারবেন এবং ফোন লাইনের মাধ্যমে এবং এই জুম মিটিং এর চ্যাটে। এবং এই পুরো মিটিংটি যদি আপনারা বাংলায় শুনতে চান সেই ক্ষেত্রে আপনারা অনুগ্রহ করে আপনার মোবাইল থেকে ডায়াল করুন 347-966-4114 এবং আইডি চাহিদা মাত্র ওখানে পেশ করুন 367-817-430 এবং সবশেষে হ্যাশ দিবেন। আমি আবারও বলছি, নাম্বারটি হলো 347-966-4114 এবং আইডি চাহিদা মাত্র আপনারা পেশ করবেন 367-817-403 এবং সবশেষে হ্যাশ দিবেন। আপনাদের যদি কোনো ধরনের প্রশ্ন থাকে তাহলে অবশ্যই আপনারা ফোন লাইনে করতে পারবেন এবং চ্যাট বক্সেও দিতে পারবেন। এছাড়া আপনাদের মিটিংটি চলাকালীন সময়ে আপনারা অনুগ্রহ করে আপনার মাইকটি মিউট করে রাখবেন। ধন্যবাদ। Thank you so much. Bengali instructions has been done.
Thank you so much. Could we have the Chinese Mandarin interpreter, please?
Okay, my name is Max Chen, and I would invite my partner, Xiaofeng Tang, and today to be the Chinese interpreter. Okay. 各位家长贵宾晚上好，有需要国语的翻译请拨打1347-966-414 ID 密码是923-533-174。再重述一次我们今天有普通话中文翻译请拨打1347-966-4114 ID 密码为923-533-174。请各位家长在进入这个专线电话以后，请务必关静音，以免背景音乐嘈杂，造成其他的需要听这个翻译的家长一些困扰。OK， 谢谢您 ，Thank you。
Thank you. And lastly, the Spanish interpreter, please introduce yourself.
Following announcement will be in Spanish. Para participar en la reunión en español, favor de marcar al 347-966-4114 con la clave 663-286-976, señal de numeral. Les repito, para participar en español, marca el 347-966-4114 con la clave 663-286-976, señal de numeral. Muchas gracias. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And so, Antonia, why don't you go ahead and call the roll?
Okay. Camille Casaretti, are you present?
I am present and very sorry for no camera on this computer.
Antonia Ferraro, yes, I'm here. Tia Shellsteed.
Present.
Vincent Liu.
Present.
Nana Poku Ajakun.
Present.
Alfred DeAngelis. Does anybody see him around? Joseph Alexander has to be at the hospital. And Yvonne Bonda.
Present.
Nancy Randall.
Present.
Vanessa Gonzalez Uoka.
Present.
And Nakia Muhasa Brown.
Present.
All right, we do have quorum. And I will turn it back to
Antonia,
you.
yes, thank
Yes.
you. Did you want to do the vote on the minutes?
Oh, yes, and I will also put in the chat the website to please sign the attendance sheet for anybody in the audience. So we have minutes from March 28th calendar meeting and minutes from April 18th. Do you think, should I share them on the screen, Camille? I don't think I've done that, but I could certainly do that.
You think you can do it? Let's do that.
Okay. All right. I do have co-hosting privileges, so I should be able to do that. All right, there are the draft minutes from March 28th, our meeting that took place at 6:76. I hope you all took a look. Does anybody have any questions or concerns about these minutes?
Are we voting on March 28 and April 18?
We're voting on, yes.
The only thing I noticed, the only one that I noticed that needs some correction is the March 28th.
Mhm.
I'm trying to open it on my computer. Just give me 1 second. Yeah, it looks like this minute didn't noted the excuse absent.
Oh, okay, let's see.
I don't know if it was by intent or there's a confusion.
So I would have to go back and look to see who had excused absences and who did not in that instance. So maybe I should table these minutes until we can get some accuracy about that one, because I just don't remember. It's
seems
likely
fine.
everybody has excused absences, but I don't recall. So
I think that's okay. Let's just table it for now.
okay, all right, and I will pull up the April minutes. Hold on a second. All right, so there is April 18th. I don't know if we detailed excused versus not excused. We didn't detail, oh, it did say Joseph Alexander had an excused absence. Okay, so it was detailed there in that instance. All right, so I'll go back and look at the March and make sure that's accurate in terms of the absences. Are there any questions, concerns about April 18th? We had a treasurer's report. We moved to over $2,000 from technology to the member reimbursement and meeting expense line. We discussed a resolution but did not vote on it. And we voted to sponsor the PS 58 Equity Committee event, Diversity in Our Schools. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen now. Are there any comments or questions on April 18th? All right, I would like to make a motion to approve.
I second.
Okay. Are there any objections to approving these minutes for April 18th? The minutes are approved, and we can go on to the public comment protocol. Camille.
I wondered, like, do we need it? Do we have anything on the agenda? We do, draft resolutions. You know what, why don't we just do it before we do the public comment, okay? So that we can just keep
Okay.
moving. All right, so I have a few updates I just want to give. So as you all know, the CEC election voting ends tonight, Tuesday, May 9th at 11:59 p.m. Do not wait until midnight to vote. The portal will close sharply at 11:59. The voting is occurring through the NIXA account. If somebody could just drop that in the chat, I would appreciate it. If you have any trouble accessing your account, you might need an activation code, which can really only be gotten through your parent coordinator at this point. So hopefully if you need one, the parent coordinator will kindly reply to your email, but please vote. You get 3 votes per child, per council, per qualifying council. And as of June 30th, 2023, all of our current CEC members will have finished their term, and an entirely new group will come in on July 1st. And that's for a 2-year term. Some of our current council members are running, but everybody, even they have to be reelected. So it's basically a new council entirely as a whole. And so parents, please do vote. This is very important. Also happening this week, Teacher Appreciation Week, and many of our schools celebrate Staff Appreciation Week. We are grateful for all of the work that they do supporting our children. It's a tireless job, and we appreciate you. So please send a note of thanks to your teachers and staff people and our cafeteria workers and our custodians. We love you all. So thank you so much, all of the service providers, everyone. I just want to give a quick update. We had talked about in relation to the wellness resolution, the draft wellness resolution, we were talking about pros schools, and I have been trying to get a presentation. But I'm not sure that we are going to get a presentation from the UFT. They have told me to refer to the website, which I just dropped in the chat. There is presentation documents in that link. So if you all want to read about PROS schools, PROS stands for Progressive Redesign Opportunity Schools for Excellence. And this is a program that is predicated on the UFT's core belief that schools work best when all members of the community feel respected, and the word collaboration is not just a cliche. The first PROS school opened in July of 2014, and there are now 196 schools that have been accepted into the PROS initiative. Many of them are in District 15. So if you all like, maybe I will invite some of the principals of our district who have PROS models, and we could talk to them a little bit about PROS. Antonia and I met with some of the elected officials this weekend, Andrew Gounardis, Senator Gounardis, and Assemblymember Joanne Simon. And we talked about charter school accountability, and especially in light of the fact that there are 14 zombie charters that have been revived. And we want to make sure that they are not pushing into any of our schools and not co-locating, and that they are just going to take care of themselves and stay out of District 15. And we also talked about open meetings law, trying to find out if there can be a amendment to the open meetings law that would allow CECs and SLTs to meet remotely as an option. Right now, technically, we are not allowed to meet solely remotely. It's just because the mayor has been extending the ability for us to meet this way, but I think that is going to come to an end because the pandemic was officially ended this week. And so I do not expect to have any more opportunities to meet fully remote. I think that, well, certainly in our June 13th calendar and business meeting, we're going to be meeting in person at PS 32. Looking forward to being in their new building and see how it looks. And this morning, the Chancellor made an announcement about a launch of a major new citywide campaign to dramatically strengthen literacy. And so we'll be hearing more about that and how that may or may not impact District 15 in the coming year. Superintendent Alvarez said that District 15 was not part of the first year launch. So I guess keep your eyes open and see what's happening in the other districts. Thursday night, there is a Chancellor's Town Hall in D13. CEC 13 is having a town hall with Chancellor Banks. So if you want to show up there and ask a question or send in a question through the website and the registration link, you're able to do that as well. Okay, so this is the last thing I want to say, and then I'm going to introduce a guest and then hand the floor over to Antonia. But we are going to be seeing the enrollment projections in the coming days, which means schools will be receiving their estimated budgets for the fall if they haven't already. And the numbers are slightly lower than last year. There's been a slight decline citywide. The new weights, the new Fair Student Funding weights for students in temporary housing will be included in the fall budget projections. So that's good news. We'll probably have more money coming into the school budgets, even though there are a few less students. And some schools did have increases in enrollment, which may be attributed to the removal of screens, new programs, new construction or additions, and naturally the influx of students that are here seeking asylum. Okay, one other thing. There's actually a PEP meeting on June 21st, so save that date. It probably will be in person in the Bronx, but there is going to be a vote on the new South Bronx Literacy Academy that our colleague and former president of CEC1, Naomi Pena, is one of the founders. And so that's really exciting. Please show her your support and love, because this is going to be an amazing model that is going to help students with dyslexia. Okay, so I would like to introduce now our newest face liaison, Mr. Raymond Pierre-Louis, who has been involved with CEC 15 in the far past. And so I want to welcome you back, Ray. Nice to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you. And apologies, everyone. Found out about the meeting this afternoon and have another meeting to run to. But again, I'm Raymond Pierre-Louis, and I will be here to support the council along with the FLC. Any issues that I can put my information in the chat. And I believe, Camille, you still have my information as well. I've worked with District 15 in the past for years. So again, thank you, and I'm here to support.
Thank you so much. And so great, if you put your information in the chat, that would be fantastic. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Okay, Antonia, I will hand the floor over to you to discuss budget items.
Okay, thank you so much. Lots of budget information to share with you on the state budget and the New York City budget. You know, I just want to like give you this tip. Sign up for your legislators' newsletters, because a lot of this information is in their newsletters. And it really supports our work. And so one of the newsletters that I get is from our State Education Committee Chair, Shelley Mayer, and her newsletter went into quite a bit of detail about the state budget. And she noted that we are in the final and third year of fully paying what was owed to us under the foundation aid formula. And she also notes that this is the largest annual school aid funding in New York State's history. So our schools are getting quite a bit of support from the state. However, I'll add the caveat that just like last year, the majority of the total increase in state aid is once again going to charter schools. One of the other successes this year in the state budget was that they made an investment of $135 million to expand access to school breakfast and lunch for nearly 300,000 students across the state. Then they are changing the rate of tuition for students with disabilities. And I confess I don't know a lot about this, but the New York State Education Department was directed to develop a new tuition rate to replace the existing formula for students with disabilities. In addition to this, the state budget rejects proposed tuition hikes for CUNY and SUNY for in-state students. They are providing $103 million in operating aid for SUNY schools and $53 million for CUNY schools. And the budget allocates $20 million for public libraries. But it's a bit of a mixed bag, as budgets always are, winners and losers. And one of the losses is that we have to reissue 14 charters in New York City. The budget deal allowed for 22 zombie charters across the state, 14 of which are going to be in New York City. But districts with 55% of their students already attending charters won't receive any more. Harlem is the only one that qualifies for this exemption. Of course, there are districts that don't have any charters, like District 20. In District 15, we already send about 11% of our students to charters. And we already have charters that are facing enrollment loss, including some of the more popular charters in District 15. So it's my opinion that we need to invest and support the schools we have, not open new charters in District 15. In terms of the New York City budget, the negotiations on that are in full swing. The DOE's budget is set to shrink by nearly nearly $1 billion under the mayor's proposal, from 31.5 billion to 30.6 billion. And about a quarter of those reductions are due to the phasing out of federal COVID relief funds used to offset enrollment loss. This year, enrollment loss is likely to be mitigated a bit by the new arrivals, asylum seekers in our schools. And it seems that the enrollment loss is leveling off, which is good news. The cuts to the DOE are also because of a scaling back of 3K and the elimination of vacant positions. But the mayor did announce that he would seek to maintain the number of coordinators who help students in shelters connect with schools. And he is looking to launch a new climate education training program for teachers. The council will be holding hearings, and the final budget is due by the end of June. One of the great newsletters I get is from the comptroller, from Comptroller Lander, and he put out just today a comprehensive school budget explainer, and I'll put the link to this in the chat. I think this is really fantastic, and I hope that the comptroller continues to do this, because I found it incredibly helpful. The comptroller points out that last year, individual school allocations were not made public until after the budget negotiations were already, and the budget was already voted on, which people got quite upset about. And so this year, the comptroller is asking the mayor and the DOE to release those budget allocations earlier, to allow for an informed conversation about the budget. The comptroller notes that enrollment did continue to decline in 21-22. And those federal stimulus funds were used to hold schools harmless. But those federal funds are set to expire. And so the DOE is going to be phasing out what they call register relief for enrollment loss. And those federal stimulus funds are set to expire in 2025. So the total register relief funding in 2023 was $296 million. In FY 2024, this coming year, they estimate that it will be lower. It will be 160 million. So they are giving some register relief, but not as much. And then the following year, they anticipate there will not be any register relief. I'm going to let you look at Brad Lander's his website and the school budget explainer. And I will just also note that Good Shepherd has a call to action about the budget, and I'll put some information about that in the chat. We did send this out to the public. They are looking for speakers who are concerned particularly about the phasing out of 3K. So if anybody is interested in participating, I will put that in the chat for you. And that's it, Camille.
Okay, thank you for that very, very thorough review. I also just want to add that as Antonia was talking about what's happening with these newsletters and things, it's actually quite important that people sign up on the Senate and Assembly website to get alerts from your senators and Assembly people. This Friday, there's going to be a public hearing to review feedback on the Solutions Not Suspensions bill that is being proposed by Senator Robert Jackson. I'll just drop that in the chat. And so there's going to be a hearing, a public hearing this Friday, May 12th at 10 a.m. at the Senate hearing room at 250 Broadway. Unfortunately, they are not having a remote option, but you could go to the Senate website and submit written testimony if you want. Let me see, I have the, this is the web page where the hearing is detailed and you can sign up there. So the purpose of the hearing is to examine school policies related to discipline and suspension and to hear from stakeholders about the proposed legislation. I think that a lot of the families in District 15 could really get behind this bill. We're doing a lot of the work that is being proposed. We are already doing that in our schools right now, and I believe that our suspensions have been limited dramatically, and much of that is due to early intervention so that escalations are not happening. And so please read through the bill. It's an easy read, and even if you could just send a short written testimony in support and maybe talk about one of the schools that you liaise with. I'm talking to our members now, just to make sure that this is getting the support it deserves. Let me see what else. Okay, so I guess that's it. And then do any of our members have anything that they want to report before we get on to the resolutions? I will take that as a no. Okay, great. So then we are going to be reviewing a draft resolution on co-location. I believe everybody has received this in draft form and it was sent to the public. I can share my screen unless Antonia wants to do it.
I can do it for you if you want.
Okay, great. So I will just read this quickly and then we will move to public comment and then CEC comment. So I'll read the resolution first and then we'll do the public comment protocol, and then we'll move to public comment. But feel free to write in the chat if you have a question while I'm reading, so that at least we're collecting questions. And please use the number for the line so that we can track all of the questions. Okay, so resolution on co-locations. Whereas a school or a program is referred to as co-located when it is housed in a shared building with another school or schools run by different school leaders, whereas more than half of all schools in New York City share campuses with other schools and programs, whereas Chancellor's Regulations A190 dictate significant changes in school utilization and procedures for the management of school buildings housing more than one school, but do not limit the number of schools that can be co-located within one building. Whereas effective governing within a multi-school building requires strong leadership, shared vision and goals, consensus decision-making, collaborative partnerships, coordinated financial and space planning decisions, and flexible and creative usage of shared spaces. Whereas all co-located campus principals collaboratively and annually complete the following required documents to be uploaded into the Principal Annual Space Survey, PASS. A, building space plan, which includes space footprint with designated room allocations by school, including the documentation of any room swaps. Distributed leadership, where each principal leader will accept responsibility for a key campus-wide coordination task, such as safety, custodial, or extended use of the facility. Shared space schedules, which includes daily scheduling of shared spaces, library, cafeteria, auditorium, gym, play yard, etc. Access and use of the building after hours, on weekends, and in the summer. Shared staffing / funding, which includes any shared staff and their shared funding and supervisory agreements. For example, campus plan for deployment of safety security staff, as well as documentation of any other initiatives that are split funded. Antonia, could you
Oh,
move to
sorry.
the-
Sorry, I apologize.
Whereas preferred co-locations would include no more than 3 schools where 1, a D75 inclusion program would be coupled with a district elementary, middle, or high school, or 2, where a D79 program would be coupled with a D75 inclusion program and a high school. Whereas preferred co-locations would only serve the same age groups such that elementary age students were not in the same building with older students. Whereas co-locating D79 and D75 programs with appropriate age district schools can offer students a more inclusive environment by affording access to general education programs that in isolation they might not be able to access. Whereas co-locating D75 and D79 programs with appropriate age district schools also provides greater multi-district oversight and the opportunity to collaborate with parent leadership bodies such as the PTA and SLT to share resources and advocacy. Whereas D75 inclusion and D79 programs are needed and wanted in all New York City district schools. Whereas, for example, there are multiple shared campuses in CSD 15 that co-locate 3 or more schools. Building 15K 280 houses 3 schools, which include 2 middle schools coupled with a pre-K and does not include a D75 nor a D79 program. Building 15K 437 houses 3 schools, an elementary school, a middle school, and a D75 inclusion program. And building 15K 293 houses 4 schools, an elementary school, a secondary school, a high school, and a D75 inclusion program. and building 15K 460 houses 4 schools, 3 high schools, and 1 secondary school, and does not include a D75 program nor a D79 program. Would you mind making that smaller, because now the numbers don't show anymore? Thank you. Whereas CEC 15 has received many complaints about co-locations, including that shared cafeteria space leads to students having to eat lunch hurriedly or at unreasonable times of the day, that the bathrooms are overcrowded, that there are safety concerns with schools using multiple entrances and exits, that pull-out services often must be provided in hallways that lack privacy, that libraries and other resources are not shared with all schools, that there is inequity in renovations from one school to the other, and that 1 nurse is not enough for 3 or 4 schools. Would somebody mind taking over? I just want to get some water. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'll do it. Whereas the NYC DOE has classified 419 buildings as underutilized, including 231 buildings underutilized by at least 300 seats, and 188 buildings underutilized by at least 150 seats, but no more than 299 seats. Whereas as a result of the recent class size law, all schools will need to evaluate current class size and conform with class size mandates within the next 5 years. Whereas schools that have co-locations of 3 or more will require extra support from the Office of Space Planning and the Office of District Planning to reconfigure building utilization. And whereas DOE must prioritize review of school buildings that house 3 or more schools to ensure that class size mandates will be met per the law. Therefore, be it resolved that the Department of Education Office of Space Planning review the space planning requirements at all school buildings with 3 or more co-locations. Be it resolved that the Office of District Planning review available seats within the 32 districts with the intent to relocate some of the co-located schools. Be it resolved that D75 programs co-located in existing public school buildings will not be moved nor receive less space in any redesign projects. Be it resolved that changes to zoning lines would not be impacted. And be it resolved that Chancellor's Regulations A190 will be amended to limit the number of schools that can be co-located to a maximum of 3 schools per co-location, where one of the 3 schools would be either D75 or D79. That is the end.
Okay, thank you so much. So I will read the public comment protocol now, and if anybody, members of the public or CEC members would like to make a comment, please just raise your hand in the meantime.
Can I ask a quick question just for clarification? Is there a difference between preferred co-locate and a co-locate?
I'm not totally following that question, but
The line 6.
Line 6.
Vincent, just let me read the public comment protocol because we're going to be doing members of the public first, okay?
All right, that's fine.
Yeah, okay, great. Okay, so here's the public comment protocol. The local state of emergency declared by the mayor to address the COVID-19 pandemic has been extended through May 20th, 2023. Accordingly, CECs may continue to hold their meetings remotely through that date. Tonight's meeting is taking place remotely and will include a public comment period. We will take remote comments to gather additional feedback from our families and school community members. You may leave your camera on, or for your privacy, if you prefer, you may use audio only during the comment period and throughout the meeting. When you comment, please respect the privacy of others. Please do not include names of children or staff. Guests who make inappropriate comments will be removed from the meeting. During the public comment period, those attending virtually may raise their hand to comment or indicate in the chat that they would like to speak. Those called upon will be unmuted. Speakers will be called on one at a time and will be allowed, let's say 2 minutes in this case, because we don't have many people here. So 2 minutes to speak, and we will hear as many speakers as time allows. And it's possible that not every comment or question will be given time. So the best way to have your question answered is always to write to CEC at cec15@schools.nyc.gov. The CEC members will also be given a comment period. Members will be called upon and are each permitted 2 minutes per comment question. If members do not have a comment, they may cede their time to the chair. So members of the public, is there anybody who would like to make a comment or have a question? I don't see any hands raised. We have 22 people on the call at this point. I will move to CEC member questions. Vincent, you were asking about line 6. Vincent? Nancy, do you want to ask your question or comment?
Sure. Thank you, Camille. I just have a comment, which is that this resolution is amazing. So thank you so much for all the work that you all have put into writing this. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. I know that the situation, especially at BHS, has become very dire, and they have been asking for years to take back the space that they very much need. And so that hopefully there is a solution to that problem coming in the near future. But I'm happy to have drafted this resolution, and I believe many of the CECs throughout the city are planning to adopt it. So thank you for your support. Vincent, go ahead.
Hi, Camille. Sorry that I was trying to unmute. Yeah, my question was, is there a difference between preferred co-location and co-locations? Because it sounds like...
I mean, I think that no co-locations are preferred, but if we are forced to have co-locations, what the language here just means that if co-locations are necessary or required, then they should not include more than 3 schools. So the schools that have 4 schools or 5 schools, it's just totally crazy. Nobody is happy with that model, and it was Mayor Bloomberg had created this small school initiative, and that's why there are so many small schools co-located into one building. But we all know that the small schools cannot support themselves financially, and so it does not make any sense to continue in that vein. So because of a number of reasons of needing more space, which were all listed in the resolution, the proposal is that there shouldn't be any more than 3 schools co-located together.
I asked because on line 6, it sounds like the current regulation already limits the co-location to 3 schools, but we are asking to limit it to 3, which is already there. Am I misunderstanding this? Because on line 6, you already said that its location, it's already include no more than 3 schools. It sounds like this regulation is already there.
Okay, so it's because because I wrote prefer, so say for example, it said, whereas CEC 15's preferred co-locations would include no more than 3 schools. Does that make more sense?
Yeah, that would make more sense because I thought that it's already there. So it sounds like there's no such regulation currently that limit to 3
No.
schools. Okay,
No,
that's
there's
that's
nothing.
confusion
Yeah,
there.
so that's what I'm asking for.
Yeah,
So
that's why I was reading the way I. It sounds like they are already doing what we are asking them. Why are we asking them to do the same thing? You know.
Right, right.
So the current regulation does not place any limit. Is that
It
the
does
case?
not, no, it does not. Okay,
It does
so I'm
not.
just gonna write in CEC 15's preferred co-locations, and then I'll write it in here also.
I would
Actually,
do
that-
something different, Camille. I would be more specific to what Vincent is addressing. I would, instead of just putting in CEC 15, I would put a whereas that says, whereas there is no current limit on the number of schools that can be co-located.
Somewhere.
Actually, that made more sense because that was set as, set out in a way that we understand how the current regulation is and what we are asking it to change.
Yeah, it is here in line 3.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I see.
Oh, maybe I need to bring this up. I mean,
I think it's just
I
a
guess
matter of
it's-
when you read this thing, it's hard to absorb all the information and,
yeah. I mean, I could just reiterate whereas.
You could say, I guess you could say CEC prefers
Yeah.
co-location.
Yeah, either way, fine with me. Since it was always said at the beginning, then there's no reason to repeat it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can see how like it's at 3 and then it kind of like jumps back to 6, but I mean, what if I just move 3 down to
No.
a
I think you have to put your facts at the top. Like, I think it's fine
like
where it
1
is.
to 5 are facts. Like 1 to
Right.
5 are all the facts.
Yeah, I think
anyway.
that the organization is fine. I think it's just a point of clarification because when you hear this thing, you can't absorb all the facts at once.
Yeah.
I don't think you need to move things around.
Okay.
But grammatically, I would put CEC prefers. I wouldn't put
CEC
prefers.
prefers
Yeah.
locations that would include no more than 3 schools. Okay. That would only serve okay, yes, that's good, that's good. Okay, thank you for those edits, and I think it reads better, thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to make a comment or have a question?
Yeah, I have one more question. So it sounds like there are also schools with co-location of 4 schools, right? Are there schools house more than four schools?
There
out there?
are.
There
Yeah,
are?
there's schools that have 5 schools.
Just not in our district, I guess.
Well,
I see.
actually, I heard, and I don't know if anybody from Janice Superintendent Ross's office is here on the call, but the building 15K 460 John Jay, I just heard that they actually do have a D79 program there, and I wanted to get I had someone from her office confirm the 15K 460 that's written in the resolution, but just today, somebody told me that there is in fact a school there. It's one of the learning academies, so I don't know if it counts as D79. It might be its own standalone thing, but if that's true, then there's 5 schools in John Jay campus.
Yeah, I'm wondering how can they have 5 schools where most buildings are pretty much standard size, right? How can they house that many students? So their co-location is based on the student numbers. Is that how it works?
So that isn't necessarily how it works, because we see what's happening in BHS. The DOE, for some reason, has just like forced more and more and more students into that building. And as the schools are growing, space planning is not really doing anything about it. And so this is part of the reason why I wanted to write this resolution, because these, we have some buildings that, not necessarily in our district, but like there's some buildings in some districts that are half empty. Well, actually, yes, in our district, like our building that is housing 676 and Summit Academy. I mean, they're at 50% capacity. So, why do we have buildings that are at 50% capacity and then like a building like John Jay that's just bursting at the seams? It doesn't make any sense. You can't have like an entire high school on one floor. It's just total craziness. And that's happening at BNS as well. Like BCS is just totally crowded into one floor of the building, that gigantic building. They only have one floor. So, the point of the resolution is that space planning really needs to assess what's happening throughout the district and make sure that our schools are able to grow and students are able to have the space that they need to get mandated services, to have lunch at a reasonable time, and, lots of other things that are in the resolution.
I see. Wouldn't it make sense also we put some kind of condition where school capacity is accounted for? Because not all schools come with the same size in terms of number of students. So I think want to make sure that the co-located school are not exceed some kind of capacity. Shouldn't that be there part of our resolution?
I think that there is. I think that initially when they write their building utilization plan, they take all that into account. But then as the reality of the enrollment within the building changes, it becomes more political about becomes the winner and the loser in this battle for space in the building. And so then those like more just like mathematical issues just go up in smoke.
Yeah, like the school construction authority, when they build the building, they have the number of students that is reasonable to accommodate the building. And so in these co-located buildings where schools have continued to grow and DOE doesn't want to cap enrollment, so they just let them keep growing, but then they're, crowding out the single building. And so they're above capacity for the entire building.
So they don't have any measurement, some sort of to move. Let's say they currently have 4 co-located schools, and the next year they have more students comes in. Do they have some kind of a procedure where to move one of the co-located school to another school, or just let it overcrowded? Is there certain day?
They just allow them to continue growing until the DOE tells the principal, like, you're not going to get any more students now.
Yeah.
And so, you know, why would you want to stunt the growth of a school that is doing well and serving their students?
Yeah, and the principal doesn't want to acquiesce to accepting fewer students. Like, nobody is motivated to do that.
So because, you know, the DOE lost 20% of the student population during the pandemic. So we should just start spreading out. There's no reason not to ensure that students have the space that they need. And so schools can continue to grow.
I see. Would it make sense we add another line there saying that if co-located school exceeds certain like capacity, DOE should do something like move one of the school to another location. This way that the rest of two school able to expand some way. It just sounds like once we have co-located school and when enrollment increase, then what we get is overcrowded school. That doesn't make sense.
Well, you know what? The way I'm seeing it, Vincent, is that I want to leave this with enough room for the DOE to do what makes sense. You know, they have like a better grasp on where schools could feasibly move to another building. And so I don't want to make it so rigid that they don't have the option to do what makes sense. So for example, like 3 schools seems like a reasonable number. Like if we have schools with 4 or 5, then those schools need to be looked at. Like we don't need to look at the schools that have 2 schools. And if the schools with 3 schools are doing okay and the principals are saying, no, we're good, we don't need to move, you know, moving is a big disruption. So we don't want to force people to move, but certainly in buildings where people, you know, the schools want more space and there's more space to give, then their conversation should be happening. And so the ask is that they are reviewing the space planning requirements in the schools with 3 or more co-locations, so that they're just, you know, review it, figure out what makes sense, and let's give some more space. Antonia?
Yeah, I can't raise my hand digitally, so I have to raise it. I think that line 16, you could say, whereas DOE must prioritize review of school buildings that house 3 or more schools or are oversubscribed or overutilized or are overutilized, to address what Vincent is saying.
Yeah, I think that the utilization should be somewhere there to be accounted for. Like what is overutilized or supposed to be overutilized, you know, so that we can prepare for growth if there will be any. I feel like the student count has to be part of the resolution rather than a number of schools, because school size might vary, you know, between schools. That's how I see it.
Yeah, I think that's good. I don't think you put a comma there. No comma. Don't overuse your commas. Camille, do you want to move this forward in some way?
I'm so sorry, I was talking and I did not realize that I was on mute. I was saying, just gonna do one last call for members of the public. If anybody would like to make a comment one way or another about for or against this resolution. I believe we are going to be voting, right?
Yeah, can I
Okay.
stop sharing so that I can go back to my notes?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, so the comment period is closed. Does anybody have, anybody want to make a motion to vote on this?
I make a motion to
Resolution.
Oh,
vote
you
on
know
this
what?
resolution.
Okay,
I'm so
sorry.
sorry. Could, could we check the interpretation lines, please?
Ah,
I table
okay.
my motion.
Is there anyone on the Spanish line that has a question?
There's no comments in the Spanish line.
Mandarin line, anyone with a question?
There's the no further question on the Mandarin line. Thank you.
Thanks so much. And Bangla, any questions?
No questions from Bangla line.
Thank you so much. Go ahead, Antonia.
All right, motion, is there a motion to vote on this? Okay, yeah.
I remake my motion to vote
Okay,
on this
is there a
resolution.
second?
I second.
Vanessa. Hold on a second, I gotta find my list. Okay, Camille, how do you vote?
I am in favor of the resolution. I approve.
Okay, Antonia Ferraro, yes, I approve the resolution. Tia Shelsky,
Approve.
Vincent Liu,
I vote yes.
Nana Poku Rajakum,
I approve.
Alfred DeAngelis,
Approved.
Ivan Banda,
I approve. Thank you.
Nancy Randall,
Approve.
Vanessa Gonzalez Uoka,
Approve.
Nakia Muhasa Brown.
Approve.
All right. And the resolution on co-locations passes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. So the next item on the agenda is the resolution to amend our bylaws to include hybrid meetings. So Antonia, I'll just hand it over to you.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen again. Okay, so there are two issues that have been brought to our attention, and they need one we kind of have to do, the other one needs some conversation. So the first change, we were asked by the superintendent if it would be okay to change the order of our meeting to allow the superintendent's report to come earlier in the meeting, preferably before any outside presentations or agency presentations. And I'll show you where that change would live in the bylaws. And I think we should just open that up to a conversation before we move on to the second change. So here you can see in black, that's what our bylaws currently say. In red are the changes. So the superintendent report would come before program presentations. So Camille, can you open that up to public and CEC member comments?
Yes. Would any member of the public like to make a question on this proposed modification to our bylaws, allowing the superintendent report to come first on the agenda? Feel free to write a comment in the chat as well if you prefer. And what's happening here? Okay, I do not see any hands up and nothing in the chat. Could we check the interpretation lines? Any questions on the Spanish line?
No questions in the Spanish line.
Thank you. Any questions on the Mandarin line?
No further question on Mandarin 9.
Thank you. And what about on the Bangla line?
No questions from the Bangla line.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Okay, I do not see any hands up for our guests. Oh, wait, I see a hand up. Oh, that's Nancy. Okay, go ahead, Nancy.
Thank you. So I thought this was a really interesting question. So I was curious to find out what other CECs do. And I checked in with a number of other CECs. And I found out that all of them, of the ones that responded to me, they all have the report of the president first, before the superintendent. So I think that it's important to maintain the report of the president before the superintendent. Secondly, some CECs don't actually put the meeting agenda into the bylaws. So that's also something to consider, is to actually not have the order into the bylaws, or to have the possibility of changing the order of the agenda the night of, right? Which normally happens fairly easily if somebody says they, need to speak sooner because of something happening. Then it has happened before in our meetings. But I do think that it is important to follow the same precedent that we have set and that other CECs have set, and maintain the order that has the report of the president, and then follows with either the report of the superintendent or the program presentation.
Okay, thank you for those comments. Nakia, go ahead.
I have a question first, and then I'll make my comment. What was the reason that the superintendent gave for wanting this change? Why would that work?
It was put to me as he felt that his time was not being respected, and he works a very long day, and these meetings can go on quite late, and it's just an issue of his time and his mental health, I guess. Not mental health, but just sheer exhaustion.
I see. Okay, so his time. Well, I think, I definitely agree with Nancy. I think, there's obviously an issue of time there for the superintendent, but with respect to the council and, the meeting being for CEC, Camille, the president, should speak first to give the report. and then hand it off, since the president's leading the council, right, hand it off to the superintendent and agree to that, and then, you know, any program presentations. That's all.
Well, let Vanessa speak first.
Thanks, Vanessa.
So I fully agree with both Nancy and sorry, I'm just having a lapse in memory right now. Nakia's reasoning. So I'm not going to repeat their opinion or their reasoning on why I don't think that agreeing with the superintendent is something we should do. But I do think that we may have some flexibility with putting the approval of minutes later. I don't think that's super necessary to have a second. And, you know, if there are program presentations that perhaps the superintendent may not, you know, may be already acquainted with, or that he has already answered questions about, or they're just easy enough to move around, say, after the superintendent gives a report, then that can be done on a unneeded basis. As Nancy was saying, we have more see fit, but again, I will agree 100% that the president of the CEC should open up the CEC meetings with the report.
So we could move that to 3. Move this up to 3.
Are you talking about the move
the report of president up to 3 and move the superintendent down to 4?
Yeah.
The suggestion was also, in addition, to move approval of the minutes to after
And you want to move
the superintendent. I don't know if other people would agree with that, but I don't see it as necessary for that to be second. We can have call to order, then report of the president, and 3 will be superintendent. So same idea.
Where would you put minutes?
Report. After the report, I think after the program presentation, actually.
Down here.
Could I just jump
like
in a minute about the minutes?
Yeah.
So I think approval of the minutes is purposefully done at the beginning of the meeting, because say, for example, with this very resolution, like when we do our bylaw amendments, we need 3 meetings to amend.
Mm-hmm.
So the approval of the minutes basically is like a way of saying, and we went over this in the last meeting, and that is approved. And so if we were not approving the minutes, then in a way, it's like we didn't finalize the approval of the things that happened in the last meetings before we move on to the next meeting agenda. And I think that's why, because all of the meetings that I go to, like, you know, city council or whatever, the community board, the approval of the minutes is always first. And that's why we don't want to be so behind in getting our minutes approved. Or at least that's how it was explained to me.
I get the logic of that. I get what you're saying. I don't think in practice it has much of an impact, because at the end of the day, so we're not impacted the ability to move forward by giving the CEC president time to report on what's been going on, and then giving the superintendent time to report on what's going on. And generally the program presentations are informational. So we are not lagging behind the approving of decisions that we made in previous sessions. And, you know, I know that that is the regular sort of course of action, approving the minutes first. But for instance, today, and it happens fairly frequently, we spent a decent amount of time, you know, trying to decide, are we actually going to approve this? Are we, so, you know, we discuss whether we're even capable of approving, making amendments and changing things and editing that. If I don't necessarily think, and in the interest of compromise, I don't necessarily think it's super relevant for a superintendent to be involved in that portion. If the logic that he has for his petition is to save personal time, which, you know, whatever reasoning he has, it's a different conversation. But if that's the logic, I really don't believe that he is a necessary party in the approval of the minutes.
So Vanessa, are you saying that you think that should be moved down, for instance, where 6 is, like to start that before old business and get into like the nuts and bolts of the council meeting?
Yeah, I mean, call to order, then report of the president, then report of the superintendent, and no, I'm sorry. I think that the program presentation often ties into questions that come up to the superintendent. So I think program presentation may need to go after report of the president, but we could discuss on it as needed, whether the superintendent should or should not be there when things come up, and then move approval of the minutes after, you know, the report of the superintendent. So right there is where I'm suggesting it will go.
I have something that I want to bring up about the way the agenda is, generally speaking. Like, you see how number 8 is public speaker session? That's supposed to be for general public comment. If the superintendent speaks at the beginning and then he's not around for part 8, then what are we doing? So then do we just move like 8 down as well? Like, I don't know, I'm just having some trouble visualizing how we're going to be able to ensure that families are going to be heard and responded to appropriately, not just by us on the council, but by the superintendent, because the purpose of the calendar meeting is for the public to be able to present feedback on the district and have some accountability and answers. So I don't think it's reasonable to have, I mean, in my mind, Superintendent Alvarez has to stay no matter what. Go ahead, Antonia. You're muted.
I'm muted, sorry. Just anecdotally, last time we met, we accommodated his request to speak at the beginning, and the ODP spoke, and we had all these questions, and he had left, and there was nobody to really answer the questions. Our previous superintendent stayed till the end of every meeting.
Yeah, I mean, like, his presence is required for the entire meeting. So there might be an argument that all presentations should happen at the beginning of the meeting and then questions later. We have tried to do questions after each section so that like the presenters could then leave, because in that case, we don't really need them after the presentation. And the high school superintendent, the high school superintendent has never been under any obligation to come and present at our meetings. It's just something that we had asked for, and just so that we were in touch with what was happening in the K-12 continuum. We're not under any obligation to have a high school superintendent report. And in fact, there are other high school superintendents. Janice Ross is just the superintendent of Brooklyn North, but I think that there are Alan Chang is in our district, John Sullivan. So it's like there are other high school superintendents. Why am I bringing this up? Just because we had kind of worked hard to figure out an order that made sense.
Yeah, Camille, I have a question. Pre-COVID, when everybody was required to be in person, were the superintendent staying the whole entire time? The reason I ask that is because, I joined during the COVID time and after COVID, and usually although the superintendents are going to stay, for the most part, they're not engaged. Their camera is either off or, they just come and speak during their time. So we can't really compare the two. But I guess my question is, what was the order, and would the superintendent stay?
The superintendent always stayed for the entire meeting. If there was something on the agenda that we knew was like council business and we didn't need the superintendent, then we would just say, if you want to leave, like we have another half an hour of things we're going to talk about, you're welcome to stay, but you don't need to. And so then they would just decide whether they wanted to stay or not.
And the order was the same, like they spoke after all the public comment.
The order was the same, and like the order was actually given to us by Faith in the bylaws template. And so I think we added on vote on resolutions. I don't think vote on resolutions is in the template for the DOE. So we added that. Some people have a line on their agenda, which is planning for the next agenda. Like we kind of do that within our emails and in our planning meetings. So we don't really do that. Didn't seem necessary to put that line item. But this is very close to the way the DOE proposed. And usually the program presentations were the things we would open with. So like the Fair Student Funding, SCA, Office of District Planning, like these sort of one-off presentations from the DOE, we would try to do those first. That would be like the highlight of the meeting.
Camille, can you just confirm for me that the superintendent for the district is required to attend the full monthly calendar meeting?
I will try to find that section in the law. Give me a couple of minutes.
We can't vote on this today. So, we can take another, we can look that up offline and have a conversation about whether we want to go forward with this change or not. Nancy or Nakia, do you still have your hands up? Do you guys want to say something?
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to add, I think it matters, obviously, know what the law is here, because then we would be only coming to discuss accommodating, our superintendent, for District 15, whereas these council meetings are for the public, right? For people, members of the community of District 15 schools. So if that's the case, then I feel that we should prioritize their needs, right? So the public speaker session, Camille made a excellent point. How are we offering public speaker sessions where majority of the details that are required to answer these questions may just come from the superintendent? It's not fair to invite the public to speak at a certain time during the meeting, and then a person that has the answers is not there when by law they should be there. So it looks like Camille found something. That's all I wanted to say.
Camille, do you want to read that?
I'm still looking through the law to find the section. So I'm just
I think
cutting
I
and
found
pasting.
it actually.
No,
Oh,
I
you found it.
Hold public
You found it.
meetings at least a month with the superintendent during which the public may speak so that parents in the community have a voice and a public forum to air their concerns.
Yep. Yeah, it just doesn't make sense. He has to be there all throughout, or at least until the public no longer has an opportunity to contribute. Do you want to keep this moving? Nancy, do you have something to say?
Yes, I do. I just wanted to I want to acknowledge that I understand that it's a long day for the superintendent. I know our PTA president comes to our principal at my daughter's elementary school comes to our SLT meetings, which are after school. She logs on to our PTA meetings. She logs on to our PTA executive board meetings. She often comes to our equity team meetings. So I'm constantly, I'm very considerate of the fact that it is a lot for anybody that is working in a school environment to have so many meetings that are happening with families after school. So I completely acknowledge that. I think that as a parent who is on this council representing parents, while I understand the challenges, I also know that it's very important for the people who are making the decisions for families to be present, to be able to speak with families, to hear what families have to say, and to do so in this public forum that is led by other parents. So I just want to say I acknowledge it and I understand the challenge of it, but I also, I must center parents and their concerns, and I think all of us must do so. And so I think it's very important that the superintendent be here for the duration of the meeting.
All right, so how should we proceed on this? Is the order that's on the screen something we should move forward with? Should we just revert to the old version where the program presentation was first? What's the recommendation? Because whether he stays for the entire meeting is kind of another conversation that we probably need to have with the superintendent. Because even if he speaks later and leaves before public comment, that's a problem anyway.
One possibility would be to have the report of the president followed by open comment. And so that way, whomever has anything to say will be heard by everybody. That's all I have to say.
Vanessa, you have your hand up. I don't see anybody else.
I see what you're saying, Nancy, but I think the purpose of having it where it is after old business and new business resolutions is to allow for discussions on these resolutions that are being proposed for the public to be able to speak to everything that happened in the above. So unless you're suggesting that we can add another public speaking session, no, just move that one. Is that what you were suggesting?
I wasn't, but I also like that idea. I mean, I suppose the opportunity for the public to speak seems like an important part of, it seems important.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Is there anybody on the interpretation lines that wants to weigh in on this?
Can we clean this up so we could sit down? Just bring it over here.
Oh, Alfred, I think we can hear you. Is there anybody on the Spanish line who wants to comment?
There's no comment on the Spanish line.
Is there anyone on Mandarin?
In Mandarin line, no any comments.
And on the okay, hold on a second. Can you hear me now? Because my earpods died. Can I be heard?
We can hear.
Okay, sorry. Okay, Camille, how do you want to proceed with this? Do we want to just sit on this, or should I just go into the second change that we need to talk about?
I don't think that it makes sense to change the order.
You think we just leave program presentations at the top, followed by report of president, followed by superintendent?
I mean, I was open to moving program presentations, but your example was completely valid that Superintendent Alvarez had left, and then there were questions after the program presentation, questions that we definitely could not answer. And, if, for example, Nicole stayed longer, maybe somebody from the district office would be able to answer, but, it's sort of like 6 of this, half dozen of the other. It's still, somebody needs to be there to be responsible for the public speaking comments at the end.
Mm-hmm. One of his other comments, this came through Deputy Superintendent Lanzalotta, that somehow he felt like it was disrespectful
to be put after the program presentations. I don't know how folks feel about that.
I think that sometimes the program presentation makes sense to come before, and sometimes it makes sense to come after. And so, you know, I mean, we would just move that accordingly,
Mm-hmm.
but we don't have a program presentation at every single meeting.
Okay, so maybe we just don't make any changes to this portion of the bylaws. Is that what is am I interpreting everybody correctly?
Yeah. You know, honestly,
Yes.
to be honest, you know, it's like beating a dead horse here. So what I'm hearing, and let me know if I'm misinterpreting anything, is that we are doing all of this because the superintendent has expressed that he feels disrespected. Did he elaborate on this disrespect that he is feeling?
It came through the deputy, so.
Sorry?
It came through his deputy superintendent. It was a message to me.
Yeah, no, it just feels very uncomfortable, I have to be honest. Because unless we have some, you know, extra details to properly, I think, and respectfully consider, this is coming off, it's coming off as narcissistic. And I'm gonna say it because I'm, like I said, I feel uncomfortable. So unless we have some more details, unless this is something where his time is, you know, more important than everyone else's time, including our time, I think we need to table this, leave it the way it is,
Okay.
and not waste any more time on it.
Okay. All right. I am going to revert all this back. All right. So I will clean this up later. The second part of this whole conversation is something we actually have to do. And there were changes to the law last year that added another member to the CEC, a D75 representative. If you want to look up that law, I've linked it up at the top. So any references in our bylaws that refer to the number of members or the quorum need to be changed. So everywhere where it said 6 council members, 6 council member votes are required to win, it's 7 now. It's 7 because we have 12 voting members. There's 2 non-voting high school members if we get them, but there are 12 voting members, and a majority would be 7. So I'll just scroll through. So 6 to 7. And it would be really nice if we did this for the next council so that they can hold their annual meeting in July right off the bat and elect their officers and not have to deal with this. And this obviously would go into effect with the coming of the new council. So 6 turns to 7, 6 turns to 7. We'll skip over that. So the council has 12 voting members, therefore no fewer than 7 members must be present to constitute a quorum, and no fewer than 7 votes are needed to carry any motion or adopt any resolution. And again, if anybody wants to go through, I've gone through it a number of times to look for all the places that need to change, but I would appreciate if somebody double checked me. And that's it. That's a change that I think.
I'm
has-
sorry, you're scrolling so fast, but there were just the two changes, right? But there's stuff on the sides. What are those comments on the sides?
Of this.
Oh,
right here.
that's a reference.
That's just a reference to the law that
Right,
changed, that changed the composition of the council. I just wanted to
Right.
cite that there, you know.
Yep.
So I can scroll
But
more
what-
slowly, or you can look at it on your own time, huh?
What did you cross out there below? Just
It's just,
What's
this
up?
is like, we haven't voted on it. We haven't voted on this. This was the previous iteration of these bylaws that were voted on in May.
mhm. But
But, everyone should go and look at this on their own time because,
can you drop the link in the chat?
yeah. I have to stop sharing my screen, I think, to,
Oh, you know what? Never mind. I can I'll do it. Okay.
but I'm done presenting on this. I mean, we can't vote on this now, and
Right.
so we I have to look at the agenda. I think we can vote either at the next meeting or the meeting in June. I have to look at what we did there. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing. All right, Camille, back to you.
Okay, so the next item on the agenda is a discussion on the superintendent evaluation. So CECs are required by law to evaluate a superintendent. Coincidentally, I think that was part of what I was looking at in this law. So we have a template for assessing the superintendent, which I believe Antonia had updated and possibly shared with everyone.
I did.
Okay, great. And then, so if everybody could take a look at that in your spare time and make a copy with your name if you want to do it in a draft, and then we are all, I'm so sorry for coughing. We are going to send a survey out to the public as well to collect feedback so that we can get some feedback to incorporate into our superintendent evaluation. We only have one more meeting. We have the May calendar meeting, which is going to be at PS 94. And then we have our June 13th calendar and business combined meeting at PS 32. So in an ideal world, we will finalize this superintendent evaluation at the June 13th business meeting. Does that feel okay to everybody? Yes, okay, great. I see heads shaking. Thank you so much for the people who have videos. Any questions? Nope. Okay, well, feel free to write if you have a question. And what else do we have on the agenda? Antonia, anything else on the agenda?
Well, you had wanted to go into executive session to discuss the superintendent evaluation, but I don't know that you need to do that. I don't remember.
No, I
what-
just wanted to put it on there in case we did, but I
Oh.
didn't personally feel like I needed to do anything there.
I can't put the link to the document in in the public chat, but
No, you should not.
huh?
You should not.
No, I
There's
cannot.
a section in the law. I just dropped it in the chat. The section in the law that.
But
that
everybody
link.
should have that, right? Everybody has that link to the superintendent evaluation template? Okay, you could
You
just,
mention it again, Antonia?
do you have the link to the superintendent evaluation template? It's in your email somewhere. I can't put the link in the chat. It's not kosher, so.
Yeah, but we should email if you can. Not in the chat, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you get a chance.
Okay. I'll send it out again.
We're done with our agenda?
Camille,
I didn't hear. I'm sorry. What
are
did
we
you
done?
say?
Are we done?
I believe so.
Yeah, Camille, you and I have talked on the side about the budget update for the members reimbursement. I don't know if this annual meeting, it's probably not a good time to raise this, but we can definitely put it in our next meeting.
Well, why don't you brief everybody on what's going on?
Oh, yeah, there was one reimbursement that our council approved, but DOE didn't process in time. I think they just missed it. And what I was told was they want the council to put a budget, put that reimbursement into this year's budget. And it was confirmed by Steve and another phase rep, Amanda, that they can no longer process it since they missed the deadline.
Yeah.
So let's make sure that our treasurer, Nikia, gets the document, and that is Alfred still here? Because Alfred was the treasurer at that time.
I'm still here.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, good.
So Alfred will have the records as well of when it was submitted. So we can review that. So I guess just copy everybody, Vincent, so that we can figure out. And then I had suggested that you just make a spreadsheet because there's so many documents and I don't know which have been paid and which haven't at this point, because I don't have any access to any of that information.
Yes, I sent you a couple times, but if you want, I can send it to you again.
You made
it was just one of the reimbursement that was missing.
No, I mean, like, there's too many emails going back and forth. I think you sent me 6 today, so I'm just not able to keep track of all of the attachments. Like, could you just put it in a spreadsheet with the links and the dollar amounts so that we can?
There was only one reimbursement. I'm not sure why we need a spreadsheet for one reimbursement. If you want, I can send you the original document. I think that I can even send you the one that you sent me with your signature on it. I can absolutely do that. I know you will see a lot of email, but I can track down that particular email and we send it to you.
Maybe I'm crazy. I thought you sent me like 6 or 7 files.
No, just one single file, and you sign it, and then we. I think I was on the email chain, and I can resend you the one that you sent me with your own signature. Basically, it was approved. Everything we have to do already done, but you didn't process.
What is the period? Which is the period?
February 2022. Yeah, it wasn't just a single amount reimbursement they missed. I'm not sure why. I try to find a reason why they missed it.
Okay.
They didn't even know why they missed it. So, but they insist that at this point, unless we add it to our current year budget, they cannot reprocess it. Well, it is what it is.
Camille, is
Yeah.
this one of these situations where the next council is going to have to vote to retroactively reimburse?
No,
Vincent?
he's asking us to vote to reimburse. But I
No,
just want to,
yeah, I think it has nothing to do with the next council, rather than that the prior school year's reimbursement somehow didn't get processed by them. It was simply they missed it, rather than that it cannot be processed.
so I have the email and there's like 18 pages here, but I don't see anything of February.
You don't see anything what?
I don't see, like you sent me 2 files that have 18 pages of documents in them. But I don't see the February 2022.
I can definitely resend it to you. Yeah, so Camille, I think we can keep it offline there, instead of holding on to everyone else.
Okay, no problem.
We can just add this to the agenda to vote on this, to vote to approve the,
Yeah, like put it in the either
Calendar
the
meeting.
May calendar meeting or the June 13th business meeting.
All right.
Okay, so then does anybody else have anything they want to discuss, question, what have you? Nancy, do you want to give a quick summary of how the School Colors podcast went on Monday?
Sure. Thank you, Camille. Thank you, Yvonne, for attending. And very briefly, we had Max Friedman and Mark Winston Griffith, the 2 creators of School Colors. We had what I considered a robust audience. We had 50 people in attendance, and it was an hour and a half plus of presenting and speaking, and they were able to discuss the knowledge that they have gained through their narrative storytelling of what has happened in District 28 and District 16 in relation to District 15. And I would say one of the ideas that they really focused on was the importance of just accessing people across the district and really hearing what people across the district are saying. So it's wonderful that the district has sent out a survey that to everyone in the district, that there is so much attention being given to speaking with people in all different parts of the district about the diversity plan. So just the importance of just making sure that all voices are really having a space to be heard. And that's it.
Fantastic work. I hope that at some point they're going to do a review of District 3 because they had a similar but not totally identical middle school plan. And it would be interesting to see what the progress has been like over there. So maybe you can pass along a suggestion. I'm sure they already know all of this. But thank you so much for hosting that very, very important event. And I'm sorry I could not be there. I wish I was there. So anybody else, anything you want to talk about? May 30th, our calendar meeting is going to be at PS 94. So Vincent, that's your school. You can host us all.
Oh, I do
Hopefully.
want to mention, I'm sorry, Camille, you just reminded me that Vincent, one of your teachers was there. I believe her name is Brenda or Roberta. Oh gosh, I don't remember right now. She was very lovely, and it was lovely to have a teacher from PS 94 come. So sorry, Camille. Just wanted to mention that.
No problem whatsoever. That's great. Thank you. Great. So then I guess we can adjourn at 8:33 if nobody has anything they want to discuss.
I have a quick
Nothing else?
question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm trying to vote and I can't get into the parent New York City account. Is there a way that I can vote through another medium?
So we have Christine Farrell here on the line. Christine, are you able
Yes,
to
hi.
come?
Yeah, unfortunately, at this point, there were some live polling places, but I don't believe they're opened anymore. What school is your child in?
PS 130.
Oh, PS 130. And you've never had a Nix account, or you just can't access the account?
I did. It's not working for some reason.
Have you tried to reset your password?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. I can try and help you. I can't always do it because I don't have the same access as the people at Central do. I'm going to drop my email in the chat. Can you send me your name and your child's name, and I'll see if I can figure it out?
Sure.
Thank you so much, Christine. Christine is always here for us. All right, so cfarrell8@schools.nyc.gov. And thank you so much, everyone. All right, have a lovely evening and see you at PS 94 on May 30th. Good night.
Thank you. Have a good night.